Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. Having a daily routine has been shown to reduce stress, improve productivity, promote healthier habits, minimize decision fatigue, and increase happiness as a result of feeling more in control of your life. But they can be difficult to build, so in today's episode, we're walking you through our routines and how to get yourself back into a solid routine if you've fallen out of one.
Falling out of a routine is literally the easiest thing ever, I have to say, and this is coming from someone that does consider herself to be very routine oriented. I have a couple routines we're going to talk about in this episode that are I feel good when I am doing X, Y, and Z things. And they're routines that I've been doing for a really long time. But even for me, like 1 week and then I'm out of it. And they do say, we have a stat here that says it takes on average 66 days to form a habit, which 66 days is obviously over 2 months. But then literally within a couple of days, I feel like it's so easy to fall out of.
I was pulling that stat from this PubMed study, which is the official database of really legit studies basically. And I thought that was interesting that 66, because I feel like a lot of people talk about 30 days or 90 days, but 66 was the average. And then they also found that participants though ranged anywhere from 18 to 24 days, with 66 just being the average, which is so, did I say 66 or 18 to 254 days? I don't know if I said that correctly, but it's crazy because you think about it. Some people, it took 254 days to form a habit, which is really all that a routine is. And I think that's really interesting because I think people, myself included, give up too soon when it comes to finding a routine and actually sticking to it and making it habitual.
Yeah, I've heard 60 days. And I always thought that was why people do 75 hard, because it's slightly over the 60-day mark. So yeah, you're committing to doing something for 75 days. And then the theory is that at the end of that, you should be able, because how does the habit loop go? Is cue, routine, reward. Okay, so you're
there's one other thing in there.
So you're building no, I think it's just the three. You're building a habit based on a cue, a routine, and then your reward, and then that becomes your habit. And that's the habit loop if you're unfamiliar with it. But 75 hard is interesting because they always say to not focus on too many things at once. And I do feel like sometimes with 70, I know I did 75 soft in the fall. And one thing for me was I was doing a bunch, I think I had 10 rules or something. And there were some things that I ended up sticking to, but other things you can't focus on a million different things at once. It's going to be so hard to build a habit if you're trying to hit new fitness goals and also trying to wake up earlier and start journaling. And it's better to focus on one at a time.
I agree. I did 75, my own kind of version of 75 soft. It was 75 days, but I picked my own categories.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
I wanted to stick to. And I think I did 5 or 6, and I kind of kept it pretty I don't want to say not bare minimum, but what's the least I want to do every day. And for example, one thing was 1 hour of movement a day, just movement, whether that was on my walking pad every day or going to an actual workout or whatever it may be. That was my minimum. So just moving my body every day for an hour, or drinking 80 ounces of water, or reading for 10 minutes, or whatever it may be. And then I kind of created routines around the habits that I wanted to do. But I agree. I think just one thing at a time makes a lot more sense, because also if you've ever read, what's James Clear's
Atomic
book?
Habits.
Atomic Habits. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word atomic, but yes, that book, I listened to the audiobook years ago. I want to reread the actual physical book again, but it's so good. And one of the things he talks about is when you're trying to build a new habit, which again, routines are just literally a set of habits that you're doing all the time. The best way to do it is to start with 2 minutes. So if you want to work out every day, literally, what can you do related to that habit for 2 minutes? He literally says in the book, he's put your gym clothes on. Literally just don't even go to the gym, just put your gym clothes on. And then after you've made putting your gym clothes on every day a habit, then go to the gym, go for 2 minutes. And what you'll find is by the time you get to the gym, you're well, I'm already here. Might as well, cause you're going to drive all the way to the gym, right? Or you're going to walk all the way to your apartment gym. You might as well stick to it. But I think that's helpful, is just picking one thing at a time.
Yeah, definitely. I will say too though, with some of the habits that I've tried to start, sometimes they stack on top of each other very easily. Yeah. For example, when I was doing 75 soft, that's when I built the habit of waking up at 5:30 consistently. I used to be a super early morning riser, and then I kind of fell out of it in 2023 and 2024. And I just all of a sudden didn't really have a morning routine because I didn't have the time to have a morning routine. But in the fall, I was like, I'm going to start waking up at 5:30 every morning. But I also set the goal of like journaling and reading and getting steps in the morning. And I felt like those kind of fit a little bit better together, because if I didn't set those goals, then when I wake up early, like, what am I doing with all of my extra time? So it
Yeah.
was like a little bit productive in that aspect to set some goals around like journaling and reading and just like making sure if I am waking up early, then I'm filling my time productively, not just rolling out of bed and scrolling through TikTok for a couple of hours.
Yeah. For context, I know we've had conversations about this offline when we came up with this idea for this episode, but for context for the listeners, I have been so out of a routine over the last few months, just from like finally recovering from some health stuff, starting to prep to move, moving, and then health stuff flaring back up the last few weeks and navigating all of that. There's just been, and I've been traveling a lot. It's just been so up and down. I have not been in a good routine in probably about 3 months. And I am just exercising some radical self-responsibility, as we talked about in our previous week's episode, and just being like, you know what, I have to just like force myself to get back into a good routine, because I am someone who actually thrives on routine. And I think that part of the chaos, I keep describing it to people as having a bunch of tabs open in my brain. Like there's just mentally like 50 million tabs going on, and some of that is just certain things need to be checked off and completed. And like, I'm going to get my new license and my car registered tomorrow, and I needed to get something done, some work done on my car, and I'm traveling. There's just like little things that unfortunately just cannot be done any sooner. But I do think that part of that mental chaos that's going on is the fact that I am out of routine and I feel kind of out of sorts, and that's leading to lower productivity. And I think that lower productivity is then increasing my stress, which is just compounding on everything else that I have. And so I am in the process of kind of resetting my routines. And I know you're super routine oriented, so we're kind of coming into this episode with different angles. But one thing that's also helped me when rethinking through my routine and like the different routines I want to have is like, what's a need? Like, what do I really, what should I like really be doing? And what's more of a want? For example, I used to be really consistent about like kind of closing out my apartment at the end of the night, like just doing like or I guess I was never super consistent with it now that I'm really thinking about it. I would do it for a little bit and then like stop, and then do it for a little bit and stop. But I feel unstoppable when I like take 5 minutes to just clean the dishes that are in my sink and I don't leave any dishes in the sink at night. I'm like, you can't touch me. You know what I mean? Like, I am just like, I'm just the best person in the entire world. It makes me feel so good. Or even when I just like fluff my couch pillows and put the blanket on nicely on the couch and I wake up in that apartment that just is super clean and looks nice, I feel so much better. So for me, that's going to be a need in whatever routines I decide to establish. Also, I always journal, I read my Bible, and I read my book before I go to bed. And those three things do not come out of my night routine because I used to have trouble sleeping. And I find that doing those three things, especially reading before bed, because I read until I'm sleepy, that makes such a difference for me. And I sleep so much better. So those things are going to be needs in my routine. But for example, some people, it's like, you know what, at the end of the day, like I just want like 20 minutes to rot on my phone. I do. Okay, fine. If that's your need, like I need to just like give myself 20 minutes to rot on my phone. Great, put that in there. But if that's more of like a want for you, I feel like your routine has to have, in my opinion, a balance of your needs and your wants, because otherwise you're not going to really care. You know what I mean? There has to be a reason you're looking forward to doing your routine.
100%. Another example of this is when I was doing 75 soft, I was super consistent with waking up at 5:30 and I was super consistent about journaling, but I did not hit my goal of reading 10 pages of a book every day. And I realized like a couple weeks into it, it's because I had no clear purpose of why I was setting that goal. It was just like, okay, that's what everyone does when they do 75 hard or 75 soft. So I should probably set that rule too. But then I didn't stick to it because I didn't have a strong need or even really a strong want to. And now I'm like getting a little bit more into a reading phase. I've been, one of the routines that I have on my morning routine list is I've been really loving reading in the sauna, because I've been trying not to bring my phone in the sauna. That just like can't be good. The temperature thing comes on it literally every single day. So I'm like, that can't be good. So I've been bringing my physical book in the sauna instead and trying to read for 15 or 20 minutes. And I've been really loving that lately. But yeah, trying to balance kind of what you need versus what you want. Like if someone doesn't work from home and they don't really care about their apartment being super clean and tidy, then it might not be a need for them to do a 20-minute closing shift because their productivity happens outside of the house. Whereas for you and I, like, I know I am a completely anxious just mess when my apartment is a mess because I work from home and my productivity happens here. So that closing shift is super, super important. That's actually one of the like evening routines that I put that were super important to me. And I actually habit stack this with, I always talk to my boyfriend on the phone, which is like a little bit selfish, but I'll call him and I'll be like, talk to me on the phone for 30 minutes. I'll put in my AirPods and just like run around my apartment cleaning for 30 minutes. But you could always stop that with like a podcast or an audiobook.
Yeah. One thing I want to say, I have two like random, I guess the first half of this episode is kind of about like how to build better routines and just like some of the background stuff. And then we're going to walk through like our routines and thoughts on that. But a couple more things on this topic. One, you were saying how when you did 75 soft, you added in this reading habit because you felt like you had to. And I feel like when it comes to routines, I just feel like it needs to be said. You do not need to be a 4:30, 5:30 a.m. wake up girly if that is not your jam. Like, you do not need to do that. I feel like on social media, I just did a newsletter issue on this, and like, I feel like on social media, we see so much of these people who wake up at 4 a.m. and do all the things for work. If you do that, I love and respect you so much. I do. Like, that's amazing if that works for you. But I think we've started to see this, like, I don't know how to explain it, but I think sometimes there's when people, not that it's more extreme, because for some people, right, if they work at 7 a.m., when I used to work at a daycare and my shift started at 7:30, I was up at 5. I was at the gym by like 5:20. I was working out, like I was up and at 'em, you know? But I feel like sometimes we see this content that's a bit more extreme when it comes to habits, routines, discipline, eating, all of these things. And we start to feel like we have to do that. Or if we don't do that, like, there's some sort of like pride associated with, well, the earlier you wake up, the better you are, or the more habits that you do, the better you are. And, or, you know, if you eat a perfect diet where you only eat whole foods and you never go to freaking Chick-fil-A or like whatever, you're just like this amazing person. And you don't get an award. You don't win an award for waking up at 4:30 in the morning. You don't. So if that doesn't work for you, don't do it. I personally, I'm not a 4:30 a.m. wake up girly. I'm not, and I never will be. I woke up at 6:45 this morning, guys. That was the earliest I've woken up, like willingly woken up. Okay, because I've had to wake up that early for like a flight and stuff. I usually sleep until about 8:30. I woke up at 6:45 today. That was enough for me today. I'm going to slowly walk it back because I am a morning person and I feel better when I wake up earlier. I've just been like staying up way too late and my sleep schedule got effed up. But you don't win an award for waking up at the crack of dawn if you don't want to. So please don't force yourself to.
Yeah,
if it's not what you like.
Productivity is so different. And I feel like, well, for most people, they probably aren't working and probably don't have a schedule that aligns really well with their productivity, and that sucks. Like, if you are not super, like for me, my least productive hours of the day are between the hours of like 3 and 5. Like, I hit that afternoon slump. I don't want to work out during that time. I don't want to work during that time. Like, I'll maybe do some little like admin work on my couch on my laptop, but that's about it. I'm not going to be filming videos. I'm not going to be, we're like actually in that time right now, and Grace and I are like kind of hitting a wall. But that's why I wake up so early, because I know that these couple of hours are like relatively short for me, but then I get another spurt of productivity right after dinner. So from like 7 to 9, I'm typically, or maybe like 6 to 8-ish, I get another spurt of productivity and I'll be on my computer. I'll feel creative, but I know that about myself. I also know that my peak productivity in terms of like fitness and going to the gym is either literally the ass crack of dawn, like first thing in the morning, like as soon as I roll out of bed. For some reason that like works well for me a lot of days. Or I have a slower morning, not even really that slow, but like I'll journal while I drink coffee and I'll be like on my iPad doing some admin work, and then I go to the gym at like 10:30 if I don't have a meeting in the morning that day. So it's all about kind of like finding what like your productivity is. I know one of my friends who, she is an online business owner. She's super, super successful. She told me that her most productive hours are in the nighttime. So she will like literally do her deep work, like working on her products from the hours of 10 and 2, and then go to bed at 2 and wake up at like 10:30 or whenever her body wakes her up. And she's like, that's just when I'm the most productive.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I feel like we do see, just like I said, on social media so much of like, yeah, it's just like, well, if you do it this way, it's better. Or we see people getting like that attention and praise for, wow, like you're so amazing. You get up so early and you do all these things. Or you have this 50-step evening routine and there's like 30 steps in your skincare routine. And like, you don't need to do all of that. If it does not work for you, if that's what works for you and makes you feel good, absolutely. But I feel like there's probably people listening to this who are similar to me in the sense that I've fallen out of routine. I'm trying to get back into it, going balls to the walls and trying to like do the most and wake up at 4, like, and do all these things is just not the most sustainable. I will say one thing that's been helping me think through my routines is, this might sound kind of odd, but for some reason this like mindset shift has helped me, is walking myself backwards. So I'll think, okay, what are the wants and needs on my routines list? Like, what do I want to incorporate in my morning routine, like, you know, in my evening routine, and like what's part of that? And then I walk myself back. So I say, okay, well, if I want to start work by 9:30, and I know I want to leave an hour for the gym, I'm going to leave like a 30-minute buffer to get to and from my workout classes when I want to go to workout classes, and then cooking breakfast, getting ready, yada yada, back myself up to be like, okay, what time do I need to wake up? And then I think, okay, what time do I need to go to bed in order to be in bed for about 9 to 10 hours? Because I sleep usually between 8.5 and 9 hours, and then I like to leave an hour to read my book in my bed and do my journaling. Okay, then I need to be in bed by this time. And then I walk my evening routine back. So, okay, my 20-minute deep cleanup, or not deep cleaning anything in 20 minutes, but my 20-minute like quick clean of the apartment. I'm going to do, you know, XYZ things. And I walk myself back from there. So then I can see, okay, I need to start my night routine at this point in order to be able to do my morning routine successfully the morning after. And that has been helping me. And I will say I did it last night. Guys, I was on one last night. I don't know what it was, but I wrote my newsletter about routines, and it just like fueled me. And I was like, I'm going to be a routine baddie, and I'm getting my shit together, and I'm getting my life back together. And I just like sat up and I literally got so much done. I like cleaned my apartment. I like ordered something I had been like meaning to order. I just like knocked a bunch of things off my to-do list. Laptop was closed at the like right time. I did my little clean in my apartment. I went and I like was like, okay, I'm gonna wear this tomorrow. I did everything. I woke up this morning and I did it. I woke up at 6:45. I went and did an hour-long workout, showered, made breakfast, and was at my desk by like 9:05. And I had a productive day, and I feel amazing. So I don't know. That kind of really helped me just walking backwards too. And
because
I
will say,
yeah,
I will say too, like with the whole comment of like, you don't have to be an early morning riser. And I totally agree with that. Again, there are some people who their most productive hours are late at night. They like to work out late at night. Like my one friend goes to the gym at 8 p.m. She's like, that's just the time that I get the best workout. I'm like, I will never, ever,
You're in bed at 8 p.m.
I'm in bed. And she'll be like drinking a Celsius before. I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, I know she's listening to this, but she gets great workouts in. Love that for her. That will literally never be me, but there are people like that. And like you do you, like you don't have to be an early morning girl.
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference between that and like not being an early morning riser just because you have fallen out of your routines and you've been staying up super late because you are sleeping in, and it's just kind of this cycle that you fall out of. Try it, literally try it. And I will say too, with the whole habit of, or the whole thing of it takes 66 days to build a habit, I do think waking up early is one of those things that after a couple days, it gets significantly easier. And I'm a little bit of the person that's kind of like, just go balls to the wall. Like if you have been waking up at 8 and you want to start waking up at 5:30, one, if you're trying to wake up early to start working out early, just book a fitness class for a couple days, because you're going to get out of bed if you have a $14 cancellation
fee. Tries to charge you that like $35 fee.
You are I will be there. Yeah, you are not going to get that $14 charge. You are going to get out of bed for it. It's going to suck. It's literally going to suck so bad, but you're going to do it for a couple of days. And then after a couple of days, it's just going to become your routine. So that can be kind of like, take what you want out of this episode. But if you're the type of person that you're like, I've been trying to wake up 15 minutes earlier, but I keep like, just wake up 2 hours earlier. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like there's a time and a place to do the whole like, okay, if I wake up at 8 and I want to wake up at 5:30, okay, today I'm going to wake up at 7:45, then we wake up at 7:30. And I think if you have like if you're similar to me and that you have different health issues and like your sleep really is important, is like necessary for your overall health, don't get like 5 hours of sleep in one night in the name of like getting yourself back together, because it might do more harm than good. So like use your own discretion here, like, or your own discernment about what you're going to do. But I do think like I went to bed earlier last night and woke up at 6:45, which will then make it easier for me to wake up at 6:30 tomorrow morning or 6:15 the next day or whatever. It's just, yeah. And it can, even if you do have one night where, you know, it's okay for you to just get like less sleep, then you're going to be real tired the next night, and then you'll be able to wake up.
That actually happened to me last night. Last night I was just like, I don't know, in my own thought. I have probably like once a month I have a night where I just don't sleep well. I can't fall asleep for a while, and I probably didn't fall asleep until like 11:30, and I had my 5:20 alarm set for this morning, and I almost canceled it, and I almost said like, whatever, I'll just sleep in, I'll go to the gym later. But then I was like, no, it's a Monday. I'll just be tired, but then I'll go to bed super early on Monday night and then get back into my routine for the rest of the week. So yeah, obviously like we're not saying don't get your sleep, but at the same time, like you can struggle through it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna drink a Celsius this morning, which I normally never do super early either. It got me out of bed. And that's my other kind of like point about waking up early, because I could talk about this for so long. They always say never snooze your alarm. Like just get yourself out of bed, never snooze your alarm. This is my hot take. I love snoozing my alarm, but I only let myself do it one time. Like I go to bed and I'm like, I'm going to set my alarm 10 minutes earlier than I want to get up, and I'm going to snooze my alarm one time. And that's what I'm like allowing myself to do. I also have the Hatch alarm clock. So by the time my alarm goes off, my room is already bright, because that's what the Hatch does. It brightens your room. So it kind of like mimics you waking up with the sun. And I think that definitely helps as well, because even though I'm snoozing my alarm, like the point is literally just to lay there for 9 minutes cuddling my dog. It's not to like go back to sleep. So I think that kind of helps too, that it's already bright in my room and I'm kind of like easing myself into waking up.
Yeah. I think we're talking a lot about like morning routines and stuff, but I also think that routines are more about just like than what you more about what you do. Oh my gosh, why can I not speak today? It's about more than just what you do in the morning and like when you're waking up and all of that. Like you could have a midday routine where maybe you work from home, or maybe you work in an office and you have an hour break and you're like, you know what, I want to do something with this time. Or before you go to bed, or when you get home. Okay, when I get home and I come in the door, what is my routine then? Or maybe every Sunday you have a specific routine that you go through. And it could literally even just be like, okay, on Sunday, like I wake up, I go for a walk outside, I go to church, I go to a coffee shop. Every Sunday I'm going to try a new coffee shop or whatever. That's a routine as well. It has a different purpose, right? A morning routine is more sort of like, okay, how do I want to start my day? When I wake up and I spend the first few hours of my day, what is going to set me up for success? And what makes me feel good and makes me feel more productive and stress-free and whatever. It could be things like I'm going to do a brain dump every morning of like what's on my mind, or before I go to bed, I'm going to do a brain dump. Like it could literally be anything. It's not just like wake up, work out, eat breakfast. You know what I mean? It's your routine is really up to you. But I feel like that's a good kind of segue into going through our routines and like what we do for evening and morning, because I know you have a lot to say on this, and I have a lot to say about like what I'm trying to get myself to as I realign my life.
Yeah, I feel like anytime I post an evening routine video, it pops off. And I always do use the hook of like evening routine as a girl who wakes up at 5:30. So it's a little bit like aspirational, because a lot of people do have the goal of waking up earlier. But I totally agree with what you said of like your routines are things that you do all the time. And I think we as creatures are very routine oriented and we thrive off of routines. I know for me, my like eating habits and my eating routines, like when I'm off with that, I don't feel great. Like I know our money routines are very important to us as girls that track our spending. And I think overarchingly, the idea of a routine is to not let things pile up and start to make you anxious. So I know one of my evening routines that you touched on too is the routine of journaling before bed. And I'm the same way at this point, like an hour before I want to go to sleep, I want to go to sleep at 9. So at 8, I need to be in bed and give myself an hour I journal and I read. And journaling for me, 2 main goals. I brain dump literally anything that is making me anxious. And I try to get to the root cause of like, okay, what can I do to kind of course correct that? But then I also journal a lot about my goals. And I find just like getting everything on paper, it gets rid of the like laying in bed like being in your thoughts kind of thing, because you're getting everything out before you lay down and turn your light off. So that's been really beneficial for me. And then reading. And I think the only other thing, like evening routine wise, is again that closing shift of just making sure my apartment is cleaned up, making sure as I'm cooking dinner, I'm also cleaning my dishes up so that by the time I sit down to eat, I'm eating in a clean space, because that does a lot for me as well. And the other thing, sleeping wise, that's been really beneficial for me is like my sleeping clothes need to be different from my lounging clothes. I don't lounge in my bed, I sleep in my bed. So having that like clear separation of like sleeping time versus lounging time. And then making sure I have an ideal environment to sleep. So I turn my AC down to like 66. They also say showering like right before bed is really beneficial, because you're getting your body temperature up to then get really cold, which is good to sleep in the cold, I guess. So those are just a couple of things that help me set myself up to be literally dead asleep by 9.
Yeah. I mean, a routine is really just, like I said, a stack of habits that you have. So it could really be anything. And I will say, I feel like my evening routine has been pretty good in terms of I get into bed, I have my skincare routine that I'm doing. I do that every night without fail. Whole oral care routine. I'm like the multi-step oral care routine person. Like I cannot not do it. I bring everything with me wherever I travel. But that always makes me feel just like clean and like ready to go to bed. And then I always, like I said, journal, read my Bible, and read a book. And I read on my iPad because I turn the lights off, and then I put the like my little e-reader. I use like Libby, which is just like a app that allows you to borrow books from the library for free. So I like literally never pay for books, but I just put it on like the dark background white text, so the screen is really really dim, and that really helps me just like wind down. And then it's, you know what I mean, it's not like a bright light on your face, because I will also say I am a big believer in your bedroom being just for sleeping, like you said. I noticed, so when I lived at my parents' house, I had a desk in my bedroom. I would like do my makeup in there. I would work at my desk. I would work in my bed, because I'm living in my parents' house, right? I didn't really have that much space. When we moved my desk, I finally got a standing desk, moved it into this little small nook in our living room. And it was not like the most ideal situation, right? But you got to do with what you can with what you got. I noticed such a difference in my sleep when I was no longer working in my bedroom. And so when I moved into my apartment last year, I was like, okay, my bedroom's going to be only for sleep only. Quite literally, I had this gigantic bedroom in my last place, and I had this little full-size bed in the corner, a nightstand, and a dresser. That was it. It looked like a literal pipsqueak, like a dollhouse-sized bed, just like sitting in this giant room. I had no TV, no other tech besides my iPad, which I only really use my iPad for reading. And I didn't allow my phone in there. My phone was not allowed in my bedroom unless I needed it for an alarm the next day, because I don't really set alarms. Today was the first time I woke up willingly to an alarm in about a year and a half. So I really am a big believer in your bedroom being just for sleep. So don't lounge in there if you can. No tech. I don't allow TVs in the bedroom, things like that. Keep it just for sleeping. And I agree on making it like a cold space. I also put my AC down like as far as it will go, and I get way better sleep when it's a cold space. But I will say, in terms of like my evening routine, I feel like that's where I do well, because I also, part of like habit stacking or building a habit, which again is just little things that go into a routine, is giving yourself cues, which is when there's some sort of trigger that reminds you to do whatever that habit is. So for me, on my nightstand, I just keep my journal and my Bible and my iPad. And so it reminds me, they're right there next to my bed. It reminds me. And then when I want to add something on top of it, so recently, I've talked about this a lot on social media and in my newsletter, but I'm trying to lean more into my feminine energy this year. So I'm doing things that make me feel more feminine. Some of those things are just energetically, whatever. Some of them are physically. One of the physical things that I've been doing is putting lotion on my hands every single night, like a good quality hand cream and cuticle cream. And so when I wanted to stack those on top of my routine or add them to my routine, I just put them on top of my stack of, my journal, Bible, and iPad, because I do that every single night. So now it's part of my routine. And I just like that makes it, I don't know, it just makes it a lot easier. But I will say, when it comes to my evening routine, I do want to get more consistent about doing the closing shift in my apartment and just like cleaning things up and doing the last bit of dishes it's there and like closing out that. And I do feel like there are other things I could add to my evening routine as well, but I'm not quite sure what feels meaningful to me yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So the first thing on that is I think when you're trying to, again, we've talked about this, but when you're trying to add things into your routine, you have to have a really strong why. And for me, with my evening routine and the whole closing shift thing, the motivation became how much better my mornings were when I woke up and my apartment was super clean. So I realized I was kind of like hurting my quality of life if I would go to sleep on a Friday night and then wake up on a Saturday morning when my Saturday mornings are supposed to be the most peaceful, like the time that I enjoy the most. And I wake up and my apartment's a mess. Like you don't enjoy your space as much as you do when it's clean. So you realize that it's just kind of like hurting you. And then the cue became like my boyfriend typically calls me at the end of the day. So I'm like, okay, we're going to talk on the phone regardless. Why would I sit on the couch talking on the phone when I can put my AirPods in and like clean while we talk? But that can also, again, be subbed with like a podcast or call your friend. But my boyfriend is actually like the pro at evening. He has so many routines. He's like a little bit OCD, and his evening routine is literally like longer than mine. He'll be in there like doing skincare and like putting everything away and like taking things out of the fridge and putting it in the fridge. Like he does the most before bed. And he was the one that got me into like, okay, we make sure we turn our AC down because we sleep better in the cold and just all of the things. And he has like a humidifier that he turns on. He really does the most. But then transitioning a little bit into our morning routine, we talked about obviously waking up early, which I'm very passionate about for myself. But then movement first thing in the morning, I think this is the big one that, again, I said it's so easy to fall out of a routine. And I've definitely fallen out of this one just with it being winter. In the summer and the fall, I was taking Bella on a 15 or a 30-minute walk first thing in the morning, like literally first thing in the morning because she has to go out and pee first thing in the morning. But since it got cold, I would just take her out to our little like dog park area and then run back inside as soon as she's done because it's so freezing out. So I've definitely fallen out of this routine, but it actually does help so much just to start your day with like some people will stretch or do a little 10-minute yoga flow or something like that.
I will also say too that you could, if moving in the morning is not optimal for you or whatever, you could also do like meditation or like EFT tapping. We had a confidence coach come on and talk about EFT tapping a little bit. Like those are really great things too. But I also have been doing or trying. We're still in the process, guys. Okay, I'm not an expert here. We're trying to figure our routines out here. But when getting like morning sunlight, I've heard it's just really good for you. And now that I live in Florida, I actually have sunlight like way more than I did in Massachusetts. I felt like I lived in a cave in Massachusetts because of just the lack of sunlight. But I've been getting up and just going on my balcony, and I'll literally sit in my chair and just like close my eyes and just like face the sun for a few minutes, and it feels so good. And just to get fresh air is really nice. I also too want to add, when it comes to I know we talked a lot about waking up early as well, but I think this goes into all of your routines, so I just wanted to mention it. But I always go back to the quote or idea of like respecting yourself enough to do what you say you're going to do. And this morning when I woke up and my alarm went off at 6:45, I almost like snoozed it. And then I was like, no. I sat in my bed for about 8 minutes before I got up, but I was like, no, don't snooze it because you told yourself that you're going to do this. And then when I went to the gym, I did a 30-minute mat Pilates. I use like, I don't know what her last name is, but her YouTube is like Pilates Body Raven. I love her YouTube videos. Her like intermediate to advanced mat Pilates are so challenging and they're really good. I went to my apartment gym, did that workout, and then I was like, like I said, I was going to do 30 minutes of cardio. Should I do 30 minutes on the rowing machine or should I go outside for a walk? And I was like, no, let me go outside for a walk. And I literally, I'm not even joking, I did like a loop. And by the time I came back to my apartment, I had only been walking for like 27 minutes. And I was like, the door was right there. And I was like, no, I said I'm going to do 30 minutes of cardio. I'm walking. So I paced back and forth down the street until I hit the exact like 30 minutes and could go back inside. But I think it just goes back to, again, like respect yourself enough to do what you say you're going to do. Because if you can't even trust yourself to follow through, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, dang girl. Like, and I also have heard the quote of like, confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do. And I will say, after I finished this morning routine this morning, I was like on top of the world. I was like, I already got up, went and did a full workout, made a healthy breakfast, got myself together. I didn't have to wash my hair today, which I will say will be interesting when I have to do that tomorrow. We'll see how long that takes because it takes forever to wash and dry. But I'm like, I just felt so good. I was like, I just had like a whole freaking day. I already accomplished so much and I'm only a few hours into my day. So I just wanted to add that too when it comes to waking up and not snoozing your alarm and getting out and moving. It is difficult sometimes. There will be friction, but respect yourself enough to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and I think that's why this episode has been a little bit focused on your morning routine in general. And obviously, your evening routine kind of flows into, like, if you don't have a good evening routine, it's going to be significantly harder to follow your morning routine. But that's why I'm so passionate about my morning routine, because if you don't have a good start to your morning and you said you were going to wake up and go to the fitness class, but you slept through and you got a $14 cancellation fee and you're rushing around and you didn't have time to make breakfast, like, obviously you're not going to have a great day. And so yeah, I think that's why this episode was just supposed to be some inspiration to make whatever routine you want. Definitely adapt our routines for what makes sense for you. But we just wanted this episode to be a little bit inspirational to get back on track, especially with it being spring. I feel like this is such a good time for people to get out of their little winter slump. I know I was in a little bit of a winter slump for the past couple of months too. So hopefully this episode inspired you guys. Let us know in the comments in Spotify, or you can DM us on Instagram what your favorite routines are, or if there's anything else on these topics that you guys would like us to cover in a future episode. But thanks for tuning into the podcast, and until next week.